should government be doing to find the right balance? If it's not necessarily regulating more, then what is it, so that John's drivers aren't being harassed while, you know, Uber, Lyft, whoever, the shared cars can just drive right past?
So if I can just twist the question a little bit so it'll fit my answer. Distinguish between, I think the Uber product, which clearly is illegal under the taxi legislation and taxi regulations. Distinguish that from, I think, room rental and from house and apartment rental short term. With room rental and house and apartment rental short term, very strong arguments to be made that it is illegal, that it is permitted, or at least that the laws are uncertain or vague. So long as it remains in that twilight zone, I think things will continue as they are. But it's not satisfactory if a large chunk of our room stock is operating in the legal twilight zone. So the legislator really needs to get in and clarify this around the country. And a lot of the work I do with the Moderator Industry Association and for clients is to try and get the regulator to clarify things. And we put a proposal, drafted a report on the regulatory landscape for holiday and short-term rental, which has made recommendations on how we think the system could be. Looked at all the case law and legislation all around the country, and we've made recommendations on how this situation could be clarified without taking away the regulators' controls and powers over the industry, without putting anybody at risk, but just to put in place, ideally, a uniform national regulatory framework for this to happen.
Sam, would you like to see uniform regulations?
Well, I think as it relates to short-term rentals, I mean, one of the things that's really important to note, and maybe we let it slide a little bit in the earlier conversation, is that it's certainly not illegal to rent out a spare room or to rent out your holiday home when you go on vacation yourself. Like there's nothing illegal about that. That's absolutely everyone is allowed to do that. I think provided that I think regulations can be good, but I don't think they need to be regulations for regulations' sake. And so I think provided that they're fair and progressive and that they can be understood and they can be implemented across the board and understood clearly, I think is the most important thing. I think some of what Trevor is referring to relates to confusion, particularly, you can take not so much in Queensland, where I think that there is clear direction in terms of what you can and can't do, and I think that's fabulous. You could take a 30-kilometre stretch of beach in Sydney that has 3 different councils, and they have different interpretation of the same legislation that exists at the state level in terms of what's allowed and what they tell their constituents. And unfortunately, what they're telling us is just wrong. So I think that's the issue. So provided there can be that clarity that Trevor refers to, I think that would be absolutely a good thing. And I think that would not only apply to the short-term rental market, but I think it would probably apply to transportation and other parts of the sharing economy that we're talking about here today.
Mike, do you think there needs to be clarification? Do you feel that your business is suffering because of a lack of uniform regulations?
Absolutely. It's differential in every state, and it's differential amongst councils, and it depends on where you go across Australia, the rules and regulations, and I agree with Trevor. I mean, I'd love to see a national regulatory system that's sensible, that actually duplicates Queensland, which is the preeminent state. I'm not just saying that because I live in Queensland. It is light years in front of some of the other states, and it needs to be. There's some things that we should have in this country that exist everywhere. Surely to God we can get away from a 5'2" railway track or a 4'8" and actually get some consistency in a country of 25 million people with a taxpayer of 6 million.
Joan was seeing on Twitter here that draconian legislation, as it was mentioned before, keeps people safe. But would you like to see more of a uniformed regulation where perhaps it's not as high as what you have to meet now, but it's somewhere in the middle that everyone meets?
Well, my short answer is no. I'm pretty comfortable with the regulation that we operate under. I mean, we've been doing it successfully for a long time, so we believe it's work. The comment about Queensland, I think we do a better than Queensland. do something else is going to benefit society. I mean, we are there 24/7. Uber are there when the pickings are rich. I'm sorry for picking on Uber, but it's so easy for me to do because they are illegal. But at 10 to 11, when someone who lives at Castlebine needs to go to work, we're obliged to have a cab out service that. We have to service 85% of our market within 10 minutes of the call being made. We pride ourselves on doing that. So we've got goals, we've got boundaries, we meet them, and we consistently try and improve. As I said earlier, not afraid of competition, but my short answer is still no. We're quite comfortable with the regulations and legislation we've got because we work with them. We don't like seeing someone else come in and operating the same service in the good times and just picking the premium product.
Lauren, is that possible? What John's saying there?
Well, from our perspective, I think what we'd like to see is some regulation that actually deals with this more holistically rather than looking at the individual industry bodies. I think there's a combination of both that needs to happen. In fact, in the UK, the UK government has recently launched more of an inquiry into the sharing economy across the board to look at all of the potential regulations and review the status of where these new forms of business might actually come up against existing regulation. And I think part of what John's saying makes a lot of sense in the sense that in certain ways, the way a company like Uber acts is against the spirit of what this broader collaborative economy is all about. And I think that's something that the regulation of this broader sharing economy needs to actually take into consideration, where we're looking at, I think, some of the accommodation, the housing laws that have changed as a result of, in line with something that's more supportive of Airbnb have been really constructive in the sense of looking at how many nights it might be feasible for somebody's property to be an Airbnb property across the course of a year or something like that, which is really just sensible in looking at the ecosystem that it sits within and where it's going to impact against rental prices or availability of accommodation in the first place. So taking that big step back and looking holistically at the positive forces that this collaborative economy can provide, looking at where it may butt up against existing regulation that not necessarily fits squarely within it, and having something that actually sets some standards across the board will actually be more conducive than looking at a particular industry and deciding who's right and who's wrong in this situation.
Julien, people who comment on TripAdvisor, would they like to see a uniform regulation?
I can't speak for the 1.4 million people that monthly visit TripAdvisor in Australia, but I can say that I think the question's been fairly well answered. I guess what isn't transparent is possibly the situation that people venture into as individuals when they use some of these companies or some of these products. And maybe that could be made more clearer. I don't know if you need legislation for that, but definitely the safety and the responsibilities aren't necessarily clear at this stage, especially in the taxi service or the ones beyond the regulated taxi services. So that's something that could possibly be addressed. Beyond that, I think again it's an advantage for the established companies to boast and endorse themselves with the regulations that do exist and that are clear in the interim until everything is blanketed or is very clear. They have a distinct advantage to saying that we are safe. We can prove that we're safe when we do follow these guidelines and these legislations and so forth. But long term, I think that obviously everything will have to follow suit, especially on the tax side of things. There isn't a government in the world that isn't going to see an organisation making money and not wanting to take some of it. So.
Got alcohol. But is it also technology? Is it a case of some people are keeping up with the technology and some people / businesses are not keeping up with the technology? Lawrence?
Yeah, I do think technology is certainly just the enabler. I think we addressed that before. It's not the be-all and end-all of these platforms, but it's stepped in at a time where a new generation is entering the workforce. They have been surrounded by these kinds of technologies from a very early age, and they expect the rest of their life to look like, their social life to look like their work life, and so on and so forth. Everything is changing in that regard. the way companies engage with their employees has to change. You know, the way we were talking about media earlier, all of these things are related to this shift in technology. So it's not unique to the sharing economy specifically, but it is going to be the point of difference that wins this new consumer demographic at the end of the day. Because you know, if I see a taxi, I'm going to get a taxi. If there's no taxi available, I may well pull out the app, because then I can at least watch him come to me. And that's the kind of convenience that I'm expecting as you know, this generation. And the same goes for all these other types of platforms. So being fluent and being comfortable with technology and ensuring that it's about convenience, seamlessness, the payments side of things, all of this stuff is what people are using these platforms for.
John, do you think Black and White is keeping up with the technology?
Look, Uber pride themselves as being a technology company. Black and White Cabs is a transport company. I mean, we take 450,000 phone calls a month. Some of those are automated. We have app bookings, we have online bookings, we can fax. We have a myriad of products that people of all ages, of all persuasions, can access to get a cab. Uber or the like, you have to have a smartphone and you have to have a credit card. Now, they're limiting their market to those 2 points, whereas we have to cater for the broad. We've got to cater for everybody. Our demographics are from the cradle to the grave, and there's the taxi industry. There's no, and we do them all. So technology, the industry does embrace. I mean, we've had FBOS in cabs now since whenever it was, 82 or something, when the first FBOS systems come out. Yes, it's been operated by cab charge, with their own issues with competition and all of that, but we've had that. We've gone from wind-up meters to now meters that record everything. We can tell you, if someone called a cab here this afternoon, in 3 years' time, I can tell you who that person was, where they went, who the driver was, how fast the car was going. We've got all of those controls in place. What I'm starting to gain out of this, we don't tell enough people. We simply don't tell enough people what we do, and we have to do that because we can compete with Uber with technology. The two issues we fell in foul of Uber in the early stages was I can pick my driver, I can rate him, and I can pay my fares paid over the app. Well, we've met that condition now with our companies. You can now pay through the app. You can't pick your driver, but that's not the nature of what we do. When we're on demand, we'll send you the first available cab. So, technology-wise, we're almost there with them, but we have a myriad of other stuff that we do.
Just interesting, how do most bookings come to you? What is the breakdown? Is it mostly phone, hailing? Is it through the app?
Rank and hail is about 55% of our business. So 45% is booked cab. Out of that, almost 50% is done through an automated product, whether that's the IVR, whether that's online, whether that's the app. I mean, our app numbers are growing every month. 12 months we're doubling. So the app is growing, and it will continue to grow. That's the one product that we really push because it's simple. It works best for us because people can track their cab on the ways. I mean, we've got all these features, as I said, we need to start telling more people.
Mike, how important is technology?
Critical. And I actually believe this is our Achilles heel. I'm talking about traditional McDonagh. Okay, and this is what I was referring to earlier when I talked about innovation and creativity, the spawning of these new industries, and why I'm so obsessed with this incubation period. Because without innovation and creativity, because I want to say this to you, creativity is the first principle of great leadership. Bringing into being what hasn't been. That's the entrepreneurship. So I actually love to hear about these innovations because we as a company need to keep abreast of Facebook, TripAdvisor, Right? We need to be right up with it, or otherwise we're going to be non-competitive, because the younger generation, they're desiring something different. And if any of you are into the racing industry, have a look at that. You now can become the bookmaker at home. So you talk about deregulation. Once I used to be a penciler for a bookmaker, and he used to pay turnover tax at the start, or the end of every day, on the amount of money that he held. Now I can become the bookmaker at home. And really, unless that betting agency discloses what I've actually bet or won, the taxman can't touch me. So the world's changing dramatically, and it's moving very quickly. So as a company, we're employing these whiz kids, right? To keep some of us troglodytes up to speed.
Sam, you got any tips for Mike there?
I think I've got a few for the taxi industry down there in terms of what might help them get some penetration on their app. But look, I think technology is very important. We could certainly do better than we're currently doing. We're focused on that to try and bring the best experience online that we can and make booking that much easier. And of course, the more people that book, the more people are going to tell others about it. So it's very important to us. But at the same time, we're not getting it 100% right. I was reminded recently of an email that we sent out to some of our users here in Australia, and people that had Outlook email couldn't see the images, and we thought this was an issue. As I did, I'm about twice the age of everyone else that works for me, and the response came back from our developer side: it's only Outlook, it doesn't matter. And I thought we're moving on. Things.
Trevor, technology, what's that? How are your clients dealing with that?
I think we're at the earlier stages of what this is going to do for travel and tourism. I'm aware of, I'm acting in for some startups who are looking at applying these sort of principles to entirely new sectors of travel and tourism which haven't even been thought of yet. And their ideas are so clever. It will have a huge impact on travel and tourism. So passenger transport and accommodation are the two fundamental sectors of travel and tourism. Obviously, we're already seeing it, but it's coming everywhere. Tour guides, package tours, restaurants, there is such innovative stuff coming through the system which will revolutionise the way those products are collected, presented, packaged and distributed. It will totally transform this industry. So if we stick our head in the sand and say, no, we'll stay doing it the way we used to do it, we will go as has been said, the way of the dinosaur.
Julien, are you seeing technology separating traditional and startups?
So we wouldn't exist without technology, so I'm glad to more important, I think the question is twofold. I think that a lot of companies do embrace technology and try and invest in technology and adapt to new technological advances. But the other side of technology is obviously communication, and it's not because you adapt it that people actually necessarily know that you have it. And communication is a massive factor, and that's what we rely upon. The technology in community today is not only about the latest technological savvy system or app, it's also about the way that you share with people.